it's next to me. Yeah.
So, if you want to stand away from the mic, I can give you the mic.
Maybe that's best thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to need
You
to
can
go.
look and
just in case that I want to move around. Yeah, down is next.
Yeah,
down is next. Yeah, let's do the rounding mic.
Okay, cool. Okay, good.
that assists industrial companies to make a transition into a green, resource-efficient operating model. One of our core pillars is the promotion of industrial symbiosis. Through this process, unused resources or waste from one company is reused by another company. In essence, what is waste from one company becomes another company. The other pillars of the work of the NCPC parks, all under the banner of resource-efficient and cleaner production. Through skills development and technical interventions, the NCPC-SA is leading the way in transitioning industry to a green, low-carbon economy. SECO, an innovative startup converting used oil drums into waste bins for schools. Schools were previously burning waste. Now the schools are making use of the bins, and SECO is collecting and reusing the waste. This project reduces pollution, diverts waste from landfill, converts waste into a valuable resource. The NCPC-SA assists SECO with strategy, improving process efficiencies, and linking the company to the industry. In Limpopo, the Green Surfacing Company is working with the NCPC-SA to reuse and upcycle sawdust. Through a carbonization process, their team turns waste material into a valuable source of energy in the form of charcoal bricklets. Green surfacing aims to provide jobs, clean the environment, and provide sustainable housing by converting waste plastic to bricks that can be used for construction. The NCPC-SA has been assisting the company since 2019 by providing strategic advice, enhancing their manufacturing processes through automation, as well as supporting them with proposal writing. This resulted in the company raising $30,000 US. Madilika is a female-empowered enterprise run by a team of dynamic women. They collect discarded glass bottles, and through a manufacturing process, the bottles are crushed and turned into a powder mix that is then converted and designed into a jewelry range. This project reduces pollution, cleans the environment, creates jobs and opportunities. The team are presently working on the NCPC-SA assists businesses to achieve a number of economic goals while promoting sustainable business practices and fostering a culture of innovation. The NCPC-SA believes that any business can start from nothing and rise up to become a successful green enterprise. To find out more about how we can assist you, visit www.ncpc.co.za.
In the African universe, nothing exists in isolation. The many ways we say it. Mutu ki mutu kabantu kaSisuthu. Umntu ngumntu ngabantu ngesiXhosa. A person is a person because of other people. I am because you are. This is who we are. In the African universe, nothing exists in isolation. You are the water, the desert, the sea. Every mountain, tortoise, flower, and bee. Every tree rooted in a sense of community. A lived expression of diversity and harmony. Our way has always been one of honoring and preserving, of respect and reverence. Nature is our culture. Whatever our promise and progress, we are still beholden to natural laws, the same as all other life forms. One part of an interrelated whole. It takes a village of our tradition, a more expansive vision, of gathering together in exchange, to light the fire and pass down the flame, of wisdom, to know better, to do better. The world as we know it has changed. The planet nor its people can continue to go on as they have been. It is our responsibility and our opportunity to offer another way to do business, another way to be human, another way of connecting the best of the old with the new. Let us serve effectively and efficiently, with solutions and support, awareness and skills, training and finance that allow you to serve, compete, and collaborate in our global community. In the African universe, nothing exists in isolation. Each of us forms part of the whole. We are the National Cleaner Production Center, South Africa. This is who we are. This is what we already know to do.
The National Cleaner Production Centre, South Africa, or NCPC-SA, is a support program that assists industrial companies to make a transition into a green, resource-efficient operating model. One of our core pillars is the promotion of industrial symbiosis. Through this process, unused resources or waste from one company is reused by another company. In essence, what is waste from one company becomes a value resource for another company. The other pillars of the work of the NCPC-SA are sustainable energy solutions, improved water management, industry decarbonization, and eco-industrial parks, all under the banner of resource-efficient and cleaner production. Through skills development and technical interventions, the NCPC-SA is leading the way in transitioning industry to a green low-cost. The NCPC-SA assists Swikotleni with strategy, improving process efficiency while this resulted in the company raising $30,000 US. Madilika is a female-empowered enterprise run by a team of dynamic women. They collect discarded glass bottles, and through a manufacturing process, the bottles are crushed and turned into a powder mix that is then converted and designed into a jewelry range. This project reduces pollution, cleans the environment, creates jobs and opportunities. The team are presently working on upscaling new product lines to grow this innovative business. Through circular economy systems, the NCPC-SA assists businesses to achieve a number of economic goals while promoting sustainable business practices and fostering a culture of innovation. The NCPC-SA believes that any business can start from nothing and rise up to become a successful green enterprise. To find out more about how we can assist you, visit www.ncpc.co.za.
Universe. The many ways we saved. Mutu ke mutu kabathu kaSisuthu. Umntu ngumntu ngabantu ngesiXhosa. A person is a person because of other people. I am because you are. This is who we are. In the African universe, nothing exists in isolation. You are the water, the desert, the sea.
So I'm going to keep talking for about another 2 minutes, because then maybe people outside will get the gist, and they'll put they can bring their popcorn in. We'll let them have popcorn in a show. So I tell you what, while we're waiting for everybody to come in, those of you who were not at the early morning session, or those of you who've had so much information since then, I will reintroduce myself. I'm Julie Wells, and I'm responsible for operations and communication at the NCPC here at the CSIR. I have been with this organization now for over 12 years, and it never ceases to amaze me that there's always something new to learn, always a new boundary to be pushed, always more water to be saved, more energy to be saved, more, sort of. Ask minutes to do 2 surveys for us, please. And the first is a sort of a relatively typical event feedback survey. As you all know, today's event was fully funded by the NCPC, predominantly through our core funder, Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. And we do need to be accountable and make sure that we report back on how things went. Was it a professional and productive experience? The second survey is equally important, if not more important in some ways, and that is our carbon footprint survey. We have a carbon footprint, a sustainability reporting specialist who's worked alongside the NCPC on and off over the years. Lloyd was actually the founding editor of the Green Economy Journal. He was one of those people singing sustainability 30 years ago when most people weren't listening. And he's made available a few online training courses for people who complete the carbon footprint survey. So if you scan the QR code, you go and complete the survey. It's just transport information. He's going to work out the rest, or they will work out the rest based on the CSIR ICC and how we process energy and how we process food, etc. But take a few minutes, fill that in, and Berryport will make available a couple of online training opportunity. I'm going to leave that up to we will publicize, or we'll share with everybody how we work that out and how that can actually help inform possibly even your own activities going forward. So we only have two speakers, Linda Godfrey, Professor Linda Godfrey, and long-standing partner of ours. So Prof. Godfrey, Linda, depending on how well you know her, she was South Africa's foremost expert in science and technology as it relates to the circular economy. She started off in waste, and at some point when you finish the QR codes, we will pop her profile up, but I'll just briefly introduce her. And as the landscape changed, science and technology, or science and innovation, as the department is now, realized that this is not just about waste anymore. It's about so much more. And there is now a national strategy for the circular economy. And Linda will bring that to you, show how we all fit in, what the landscape is. And then we always leave the last word to my boss. And Duval will bring the last word, and he will share with you, okay, so now what? What can the NCPC do will help you on that journey? So I think there's a few more people entered, so I think we can stop showing the QR codes for a minute. Afterwards, we'll put them up again, and I'll ask Linda to come join me on stage. Well, not join me, but join us.
I think everyone actually just waits for me to fall. Am I audible? Loud? Sound? Coming. You can hear me? Great. Excellent. Oh, that's me. Don't think we need to see me. There we go. Perfect. Well, first of all, thanks everybody for staying until the last session. I know you were probably all dying to leave at tea time, so I greatly appreciate that you stuck it out. I think we have people online as well, do we? Virtually joining, so yeah. It's great to be with you today in this closing session to talk to you about the circular economy, to talk to you specifically around the work of the Department of Science and Innovation and the development of a new circular economy STI strategy. And I'm going to start off, I wasn't here for the morning because I had to be in Johannesburg talking circular plastics economy and a global plastics treaty, but I kind of suspect that there were probably hints of circularity throughout the day. Julie? Okay, so we've been talking circular economy, and I wanted to start off by, maybe it's just the academic, the lecturer in me, starting off with the 101, that we're all on the same page in terms of what we mean when we talk about a circular economy before I jump into specifically the new strategy. Anyone who has seen one of my presentations knows this is always my first slide. And I don't think it'll ever change. Because if I was listening to the first speaker who was saying, if you don't remember what I look like, just remember. Well, that doesn't matter. If there's only one thing you remember, it's that the circular economy is not about waste management. The circular economy is not a synonym for recycling. The circular economy is so much bigger. It's about sustainable resource management. It's about how we as a country utilize our resources and how we manage the risks associated with the use and availability of our resources. And so the circular economy has provided us with a very important lens through which to look at our national resource base and to ask the question, are we using our resources in the best interests of our people? Are we using our resources in the best interests of our development objectives? And I think so much of the science, so much of the evidence now points to the fact that never before have we seen such a demand for resources globally. You can see specifically things like your non-metallic minerals for construction, almost exponential growth in what we're seeing. This obviously comes with the fact that we live on a planet of finite resources. Can we continue to extract and consume in this way? What are the environmental implications of extraction and use? What are the social implications of extraction and use? What happens when we start to run out of these resources? And so over the past decade, the Department of Science and Innovation has developed a number of strategies and roadmaps to guide our national system of innovation with regards to resource use and management. And to some degree in kind of a siloed effect, because it was before we were really talking about this idea of a circular economy. So we have the waste RDI roadmap that I've managed for the last 9 years, and it was really about how do we unlock new high-value end-use markets from our waste streams. We had the water roadmap, which said as a water-stressed country, how do we drive greater efficiency and use, and how do we rethink our relationship with our water resources? We've got the STI for Sustainable Human Settlements, which also asks this question, how do we build and how do we live within our cities in a sustainable way? The additive manufacturing strategy, and you might say, well, hang on, wait a second, what does additive manufacturing have to do with the circular economy? And I'll circle back to that, I'll come back to that a little bit later. The Hydrogen Society Roadmap, obviously we're talking renewable energy, and one of the 3 principles of a circular economy is regenerating natural systems. So obviously a strong role for renewable and alternative energy sources. And I think because we don't yet have a fully universally agreed upon definition of the circular economy, there is this question in terms of, does the circular economy include renewable energy, or is it a circular economy powered by renewable energy? At the CSIR, we've interpreted it to include renewable energy and alternative energy sources. And then last but no means least, the bioeconomy strategy, which speaks to the biological material side of the circular economy, our organic materials, our biomass. How do we unlock opportunities in terms of biomaterials, biochemicals? How do we keep those resources flowing by reintroducing them back into the economy, whether it be through composting or anaerobic digestion or in terms of biorefinery? And we've funded, and the Department of Science and Innovation has funded some very innovative projects unlocking high-value products from organic waste streams, agro and agro-processing waste streams. The department then published the white paper on science and innovation in 2019. It was the first national policy document that specifically referenced this term, a circular economy, and also adopted a broad definition of what it is in terms of sustainable resource management. And since then, we've had the new decadal plan, the new 10-year decadal plan of the department that will guide science, technology, and innovation. And again, it identifies 3 priority sectors, so modernizing mining, modernizing manufacturing, and modernizing agriculture, with the circular economy and the digital economy as cross-cutting issues. So the department and the South African government very much recognize the importance of science, technology, and innovation in transitioning us to a more circular South African economy. And I think I've been fortunate to have managed the waste roadmap for the 9 years in terms of thinking about what is my role, what is the Department of Science and Innovation's role when it comes to moving our national system of innovation forward. And there are 4 main areas that I can see where we can provide support and unlock opportunity. The first of these is unlocking technology opportunities. This might be new technology development, it might be technology localization in terms of inbound technologies to South Africa, it might be technology adaptation to our specific environment. It's around evidencing decision making. So how do we provide the science and the evidence to allow the private and public sectors to take informed decisions of what is appropriate for their businesses or for government implementation or policy development? The third is around specifically evidencing policy development and implementation. Evidence-based policy. How do we preempt the policy needs of government to make sure that when they come to the point of drafting legislation, we have the solid science there to support that process. And I'm going to provide a little bit more examples of some of these. And then the fourth one is supporting business to de-risk, to scale their interventions. And again, some of the work that the CSR has done has shown that this concept of a circular economy is not new to South Africa. We've been doing this for decades. But what we haven't gotten right yet is we haven't achieved the scale for meaningful impact. And it is the private sector, I honestly believe, it's the private sector that will drive our transition to a circular economy. The role of government is to create the right enabling environment for that to happen. So how do we use science, technology, and innovation to allow business to de-risk their social or technological innovations? How do we help them to scale and to rapidly scale those interventions? How do we support them in demonstrating, giving them the space and the platform to demonstrate what they're doing? Because I think, again, from my experience, we are a continent where we like to see something and to touch it and to see how it's working before we're prepared to invest in something. We are very risk averse when it comes to implementing new potential innovations and solutions. So how do we as the National System Innovation support business in adopting and scaling circular practices? So the first one, technology. And yeah, I want to reflect back on the last 9 years of the waste roadmap of how we've been able to do this, and I believe successfully do this. We've supported a number of research projects in 5 priority waste streams. We were focusing on organic waste, waste plastic, electrical and electronic equipment, tires, and municipal waste. And the majority of this was funded by the Department of Science and Innovation. So because it's publicly funded, all of these studies are available on the Waste Roadmap's website. You can see the reports, the journal papers, they're all there for you to access. And a lot of these projects, the researchers are now partnering with small business, with big business, to take these projects into commercialization or to take them into implementation together with private sector partners. A lot of it from the forestry sector, the pulp and paper sector, in terms of unlocking, again, high-value products. So things like nanocrystalline cellulose fiber recovery, pine oil recovery. I always use the example of the chicken feather valorization. Golly, we're a country that loves to eat chicken, and it was astonishing in terms of just how much chicken feather waste we produce in this country that traditionally would have gone to landfill site, probably. The biorefinery industry development facility is now in discussion with the pharmaceutical industry, the textile industry, in terms of taking valuable products that are recovered from chicken feather waste into practical application. The recovery from electronic waste as well. And again, a lot of these have been public-private or partnerships between the private sector and between our universities or our science councils. And one that's just wrapping up at the moment now as well is the beneficiation of textile waste. We know with fast fashion and the growing consumption of textiles, of clothing, what do we do with these products at end of life? A lot of this is also finding its way onto the African continent and then ending up in our landfill sites. What do we do with these products? Evidencing decision making. So I think one of the first questions that I was asked when we started to go down this path of a circular economy was, well, is this even relevant for South Africa? Is this a global north agenda? I've heard all of these. Is it a global north agenda? Is it a trade agenda to try and restrict trade from the global south? Does it make sense for us as a developing country to be transitioning to a more circular economy? And so we said, well, the first thing that we have to do is actually to understand this concept and its relevance for South Africa. What are our drivers as a country in terms of wanting to manage our resources more sustainably? What are our drivers for wanting to decouple South Africa's development from resource consumption? And so we undertook a series of studies. Again, they're all publicly available. I've got the URL down the bottom where you can access them. And we looked at 2 of the big drivers. So is resource scarcity a driver for South Africa? I think I've got a slide on that. Is climate mitigation a driver for South Africa to transition to a more circular economy? And then what does the circular economy mean in, I think it was 7 resource-intensive sectors of the South African economy: mining, agriculture, manufacturing, human settlements, mobility, energy, and water. And we're currently busy with the last 2 of those that will be published before the end of the year. We also tasked the University of Cape Town in partnership with Boku to answer this question, well, how circular is the South African economy already? And the material flow analysis that that study published, again, also publicly available on the Waste Roadmaps website, showed us a couple of really important things. I think first and foremost was, it wasn't surprising to see that we're a very extractive-based economy, which is this part. Mining, our minerals and metals sector makes up, I think, around 8% of our GDP. We extract, but sadly, we export a lot of that in unbeneficiated form. So we are losing those minerals and metals from the South African economy. We also have incredibly big throughputs of waste streams, whether it be gaseous, liquid, solid waste streams that flow through our economy. So essentially, we are sitting with the environmental and social burden of providing resources to the rest of the world to support their development. Does that make sense? Again, coming back to the question, are we using our resources in the best interests of our people and in the best interest of our development objectives? I think the saddest part for me was this tiny little block over here, which is our stock ad. That is our infrastructure, our roads, our buildings, our bridges, and it highlights how little of our own resources goes into building our own stock and our own infrastructure. And does that make sense when you have people living in settlements, when you have people living in poverty, when you have inequality and food insecurity of resources that essentially flow back into the economy? So overall, we're about 7% circular, which is actually not bad because that's about the global average as well in terms of where countries sit. So I said, as I said, it's not new to us. A lot of this 7% is actually made up by the recycling and kind of the reintroduction of organic materials. I think that makes up about 5% of the total. So it really started to highlight some key issues. An economy materially dominated by export-oriented extractives, an economy energetically dominated by fossil fuels, notably domestic coal, supported by imported oil, a sizable footprint of bio-based activities, low rate of domestic stock building, and pockets of high circularity. And I think we all know the important role that our informal sector plays in driving that circularity. But what it started to do, this material flow analysis, is it forced us to start asking specific questions. Do we understand our resource base as a country? And I would love to know the answer to this question, and I don't know if anyone in the room has the answer, but do our commissioners for the NDP, have they ever asked the question, do we have the resources we need to achieve our growth path? Has anyone ever looked at whether we have the resources to achieve the NDP 2030? Because if we don't, how are we to achieve those development objectives? Do we know how long those resources are going to last for? What are we extracting? So when the CSIR's mining group started looking at our critical and strategic raw materials, we really struggled to get reliable data on our minerals and metals resource base. It also started to ask questions around what are we importing and exporting? Does it make sense to be exporting in unbeneficiated form? Could we be adding value through local beneficiation and job creation through our economy? Where do we see the greatest demand for resources? So the fact that agriculture uses 61% of our water, but I think only contributes about 3% to our GDP, does it make sense that our allocation of water is to the agricultural sector? Could we decouple the production of food and feed from water consumption? How do we drive a more water-efficient agricultural sector? What proportion of our resources go into local stock building? And what should our infrastructure look like? And in fact, I think at the World Circular Economy Forum that I attended in Brussels in April, I heard this figure and I've yet to validate whether it's correct or not, but someone said 90% of the buildings that will stand in Africa by 2050 are still to be built. And so there is a huge opportunity for us to rethink the cities of the future in Africa. What do we want our cities to look like in a way where we can live, work, and play in a space that is sustainable, but where also people are not using the bulk of their income to pay for transport to get to work? Is the 15-minute city a viable concept for Africa in rethinking our urban design? So suddenly, we started asking questions about our mining sector, about trade, around manufacturing, agriculture, energy, our built environment, our human settlements, mobility and infrastructure. And only at the end, it was like, okay, yes, waste has a role to play as well. The environment is important. But at the heart of this is an economic issue. This is a resource issue in terms of managing the risk to South Africa's economy. And so when we asked ourselves this question, what are the drivers for South Africa? We looked at, well, what have been the drivers for other countries? The first one that appeared was this issue of resource scarcity. I think Europe was the first to ask this question, and they published a list of critical raw materials back in 2011, I think it was. I think they had 14 at that stage. These were resources that they needed to support development, but that they did not have in the ground in the EU region. So is this a driver for South Africa? The second was environmental. So the International Resources Panel has shown that 50% of climate impacts, 90% of water stress, 90% of biodiversity loss comes from the extraction and processing of resources. And so if we are going to achieve, or if we are going to address these big environmental challenges that are facing us globally, we have to be looking at this issue around how we consume resources. And then the pandemic hit, and we started hearing things like a green economic recovery, build back better, because more and more the evidence is showing us that there is opportunity to create new businesses, to create new jobs within a green and a circular economy. And so we commissioned the CSR to do the first one. Is resource scarcity a driver for South Africa to transition? And I was, well, it can't be. I mean, surely we must have hundreds of years of minerals and metals in the ground in South Africa. We have a long history of mining. And what it showed is, yes, it is. We have 18 critical and strategic raw materials, 5 of which have less than 50 years of economically viable mining remaining. For many of you in the room, that's within your lifespan. What happens when we run out of those resources? And what happens when we run out of those resources when we still have inequality and poverty in the country and we start to lose parts of that 8% that make up our GDP? The other thing as well is that for those 5 critical and strategic materials that have less than 50 years, we are exporting most of those minerals and metals. So we lose our ability to drive circularity of those minerals and metals at end of life. We lose them into the international markets. Our platinum might go off into making catalytic converters somewhere else in the world. And we lose our ability to get our platinum back again. So the African Development Bank at the moment is looking at work around minerals as service. Can we lease our minerals and metals into the international community? Can we essentially lease our platinum into the automotive industry that at the end of life of a catalytic converter, we get that platinum back again? And this is the exciting part in terms of the interface between a digital and circular economy, is how do we use things like Internet of Things and 4IR to essentially keep tabs and track the resources that we may be providing through a product to service model, for example. We also showed that, yes, climate mitigation is also a driver. We have the ability, just through circular interventions in energy, mobility, and agriculture, to near stabilize South Africa's greenhouse gas emissions. So it's absolutely a driver in terms of adopting more circular practices. The other two drivers, the economic and the social drivers, we haven't yet answered those. And I think that's a key piece of the puzzle that we still need to complete in terms of understanding South Africa's drivers for a circular economy. We also looked, though, for each of these sectors, we looked at the current level of adoption of various circular interventions, and we looked at the obstacles that stand in the way of scaling. We looked at the readiness to implement these interventions. And these reports have graphs like this that highlight where we are quite advanced already. So in manufacturing, for example, we're already doing a lot, and you've heard it over the last 2 days, resource efficiency and cleaner production. We're already doing a lot in that space. How do we scale that up? But there are other areas where we are not quite sure maybe how this will work. Things like chemical leasing, for example. So again, the role of science, technology, innovation. How do we start to demonstrate some of these circular interventions to help de-risk? And each of the reports have graphs like this that you can go through. So there's a series of them. There's also a short series of briefing notes. They're only 4 pages each. They're a quick read if you're interested in just discovering more about what the circular economy means in each sector. The third area, preempting policy needs. And there are just 2 examples here that I want to touch on. I don't even know how I'm doing for time, but I'm assuming at some point someone will pull me down off the stage. Because otherwise I'll still be at 7 this evening. The 2 examples that I want to touch on where the Department of Science and Innovation's funding has directly supported government. The first is, I mentioned this morning, I was at the Safripol conference discussing the Global Plastics Treaty. What should South Africa's response be in terms of appropriate policy around minimizing the leakage of plastic into the environment? And so a study that was conducted, it was a partnership with Oxford University, CSIR, and the Pew Charitable Trust in the USA, looked at modeling a business as usual scenario, and that's this graph on the left-hand side. So if we just allow plastic continue to leak into the environment, it looks rather horrendous. We looked at a version of if we can achieve our new extended producer responsibility regulation targets, what does that look like? And then we also modeled a system change scenario. So in other words, upstream interventions, how do we eliminate problematic and unnecessary plastics? How do we substitute some plastic material to bio-benign alternatives, whether it be paper or biodegradable plastics or glass or metal? And then downstream interventions in terms of increasing our recycling capability and infrastructure, improved waste management and waste collection for all. And what it showed us is that there is no single silver bullet when it comes to managing plastic pollution. Our EPR will provide us with around about a 33% reduction. So it's around about 2 years. So extended producer responsibility will basically stabilize the leakage of plastic into our environment. But we need to implement other interventions as well, upstream and downstream interventions. And a system change scenario will bring us to around about a 63% reduction. What it also highlighted, I think everyone's probably seen on the news or social media, you would have seen the turtle wrapped in a fishing net, or sea life entangled in plastic. Marine plastic pollution is the receiving environment that gets the attention. But what this highlighted is that our concern is the open burning of plastic waste. The fact that only 60% of households in South Africa receive a weekly waste collection service. In rural provinces, that's only 12%. 12.5% of households in rural provinces receive a weekly waste collection service. So what do people do? They tend to bury it in the back of the yard, they'll burn it. And the open burning of plastic is a much bigger problem for South Africa. This is terrestrial pollution than aquatic, fresh, and marine pollution of plastic. So from an air quality and a health perspective, it's the open burning that should be worrying us. We've also heard stories about people losing their livestock, cattle, sheep, goats, eating plastic, stomachs full of plastic and basically starving to death. So the terrestrial pollution for us on the African continent is also a very big one. The second study where science, technology and innovation is supporting and hopefully will inform policy development is around our nationally determined contributions. So from our climate commitments, we are currently piloting the UN, UNEP and UNDP's toolbox of building circularity into our NDCs. And we should hopefully be in a position to then provide the information to the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries in terms of where we can have impact through circular interventions, again from a climate mitigation perspective. And then the fourth one that I mentioned, supporting business and de-risking and scaling interventions. And I just want to touch on two funding programs, again from the Department of Science and Innovation. The first one was around the Technologies Demonstration Program for biorefinery, where they are working with small businesses to implement biorefinery technologies and solutions. And the second one is a fund that my office published last year, which was the Circular Economy the Circular Economy Demonstration Fund. And the point of the Circular Economy Demonstration Fund was to bring our universities and our science councils closer to the private sector. How do we use the bright minds that we have sitting in our universities, the infrastructure, the laboratories that they have? How do we bring that capacity closer to the private sector to help business to de-risk, to scale, and to demonstrate? We're funding 8 projects through that initiative, and hopefully some exciting ones as well in the future as we go forward. Okay, so after that introductory lecture, I can now get to the point of the presentation. But I'm going to zip through this pretty quickly because it is a draft, and I just want to give you insight into the draft, which over the next 2 months we'll be moving to finalization. And so in response to the white paper, in response to the decadal plan, we have put together a science, technology and innovation for a circular economy strategy, the vision of which is producing and using STI to support an inclusive, just and climate resilient circular economy transition in South Africa. Because the decadal plan has focused on 3 priority economic sectors, mining, manufacturing and agriculture, those are the 3 areas where we are starting as well. So how do we drive greater circularity in mining, in manufacturing and in agriculture? These are not cast in concrete, but this is what is being proposed in terms of the specific focus areas under each of those sectors. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you're probably the first audience to see this. So under the circular economy in the mining sector focus or thematic area, the first one that we're looking at is resource security. So understanding our minerals and metals resource base. It's about our critical raw materials. The second one is around resource efficiency. So this is, how do we utilize resources in the mine? How do we utilize energy, water, materials? What waste streams are being produced? And how do we unlock value from those waste streams? The third area is what we've called diversifying feedstocks, but essentially speaks to urban mining. Does it make sense to be sinking a shaft 3 kilometers underground to get gold, which in fact is 40 times more concentrated on the printed circuit board of your cell phone? So why are we exporting our electronic waste at end of life to other countries for them to beneficiate and access minerals and metals? So can we access minerals and metals from other feedstock that is not necessarily ore coming out of the mining environment? Within the manufacturing sector, the 4 that we've identified there, and we already have a strong footprint through the work that the NCPC is doing, is resource efficiency and cleaner production. But again, how do we scale that? How do we support industry to decouple manufacturing from the consumption of resources and the generation of waste? Circular product design. How do we get our manufacturing sector to design for circularity, design for dismantling, design for remanufacturing, design for repair and for reuse? The materials that we are using, can they be recycled at end of life? Or are we building these integrated composites that we can do nothing with other than landfill? Advanced manufacturing, things like additive manufacturing, 3D printing, green manufacturing. How do we decarbonize our steel and cement industries, for example? There's a whole cluster of activity that sits under the advanced manufacturing space. And then remanufacturing. I honestly do believe that there needs to be more attention given to the potential that remanufacturing can provide to South Africa. We have a large automotive industry, for example, in South Africa. It's going to, in my personal opinion, it's going to probably be a number of years before developing countries transition to electric vehicles or greater public transport. Why are we not positioning South Africa as the leader in the remanufacturing of internal combustion engine vehicles, where OEMs have the opportunity to change out an engine with a more energy efficient engine or advanced technology in the engine and put that product back onto market with the same kind of OEM warranties or guarantees? We have the capability, we have the skills to be doing that. Why isn't that a priority for our economy? And then in agriculture, again, you'll see a common thread across all three of these: resource efficiency. It speaks to that point around how do we decouple the production of food and feed from water consumption. Regenerative agriculture. Should we as a continent be aspiring to these hectares and hectares of land under monocrop with high till, high chemical and high fertilizer use? Or can we produce food and feed in a more regenerative way? Things like permaculture, aquaculture. There are wonderful examples that we are seeing pop up across the African continent of regenerative farming practices. And again, I'd love to be able to demonstrate more of these farming practices that people can come and explore. And so both the University of KwaZulu-Natal and Northwest University are quite interested in pursuing on their agricultural land the potential demonstration of regenerative practices that small-scale farmers can come and be trained in these and then take it back. One of the demonstration projects we're also funding is around urban agriculture with the City of Cape Town and Stellenbosch University, around a sustainable, financially and environmentally sustainable 1 hectare urban farm, which could then be replicated in urban spaces to support food security. Agro-processing, it speaks to issues around packaging, but also the agricultural waste streams, the organic waste streams that could feed into biorefinery, which is then the last one. How do we unlock these high-value products from our organic feedstocks? There are a number of clusters that we're focusing on. This is not just about technology. There's also a very strong pillar around society, which is around understanding the behavioral and social elements of a circular economy, but also the data and the modeling and the tools. How do we build capability in things like life cycle analysis or material flow analysis? How do we ensure that every technology project that a university is doing is coupled with a techno-economic feasibility study to make sure that even though it's great science, in practice it's also going to work, and in business it's going to work. And so essentially this is, I always try to simplify things for my own mind, but I suppose this is a little bit of a theory of change. It's the STI strategy on one slide, which recognizes on the left-hand side that we have these challenges. We have growing resource insecurity. We have that, like we showed in the material flow analysis, we are losing these resources as waste or through export, etc. Because this STI strategy is the mandate of the Department of Science and Innovation, we've had to say, what is the mandate of the DSI? And what are the 3 pillars that the department supports? It's around human capital development. So how do we build the skills that the next generation is able to take this forward as well? So the first one is around skills development. The second one is around the research and development and the evidence. All of that science and the evidence that's going to inform this journey. And then the third is around the technological and social innovations that support us in this. The 3 focus areas, the 3 economic sectors, the 5 clusters, priority areas, and hopefully, if we get this right, and if we can walk this journey in partnership with the public and private sector, the kinds of outcomes that we can realize as a country. So as I said, it's not a final document. We are close to it. The next step is to take this to the Department of Science and Innovation's executive for their consideration, to report on progress, to go through another round of review and a final engagement with stakeholders before we finalize this. But I think we're near close to finalizing, Alina. So before the end of this year, we will have South Africa's Science, Technology and Innovation Circular Economy Strategy, and then the job will fall on us to give effect to it. But we'd love to work with all of you in the room in terms of how we move forward on this, because I think there is an urgency in how we manage and utilize our resources as a country. And hopefully there's opportunity to partner both with government and with the private sector and business in terms of adopting these circular practices. Thank you very much.
We just want to see if there's any questions before. No. You, sit. You can answer from the. Okay, so I see I see a question over there. Oh, behave. And I hear a voice. There we go. Okay, sir, at the right at the back. What is your question? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you're not actually pressing the, there we go. Now try. It's still not working. Okay, one of the tech guys is coming.
What's happening with that?
Sorry about that, Mali.
No worries. Hi, good afternoon. Okay, that's audible. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Mbali, and I'm one of the delegates from Eco Transformers. We are based in the Free State. And ma'am, I wanted to find out, in terms of, have you guys maybe engaged with the mines? This is now regarding especially repurposing of the land. Obviously, as part of the the eco-circular economy and what we're trying to achieve, I think as everybody in here, I believe as you stated that, the engagement, it has to be broad, especially with the private sector. So for me, I want to find out what has been their stance, because we have a lot of mines which are lying in idle, and I think that will also reduce the amount of illegal mining as well. Have you had any engagements in terms of, repurposing that land, maybe for beneficial use, such as, gardening and so forth and so on? Because we're also involved in composting. So it's basically one of the things that we're also looking at. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your question. So there's actually been a very positive response from the mining sector with regards to this concept of a circular economy. And certainly many of the large multinational mining houses have developed their own circular economy strategies already. And so there's been engagement in terms of understanding what the circular economy means in the context of a mine. There's been a lot of discussion around whether land rehabilitation, while it is absolutely an environmental imperative, whether it is in fact a circular economy imperative. Things like composting, absolutely. But at this stage, we haven't specifically engaged on the issue of land use, because I'm not convinced it's really within the ambit of how do we keep our resources. And I suppose you could argue that land is a resource. But it's kind of on the fringes for now that we haven't actively engaged in that space in terms of kind of post-mining land rehabilitation and use. Thank you. There was another question up here somewhere, I think it was.
Yes, there are.
My name is Oscar. My surname is Mola. My company is a trading enterprise. The problem about the beneficiation is about African countries. We got the bilateral trade agreement that we signed that are still binding African countries regarding. That's why there's a slow of not building refineries, because due to agreement that we signed, that our leaders didn't want to tell them to resist transactions that are not favoring African countries. We got many resources that that can even assist regarding to hydrogen, regarding those green energy, green transportation. But because of those agreements, like South Africa, we got 85% of platinum, global platinum. But we are still exporting the raw material because we don't, because of those agreements, bilateral agreements that our leaders decided. We are able to build some refineries in South Africa so that we can have a beneficiation. I think regarding the future mining and agriculture, that one is keen us to spend the raw material because of those agreements. If you can revisit those agreements and doing and see what is going to be best, and also to trade one another in Africa. Like when I was attending FCTA with African Bank, they say Africa, our GDP is $1.4 trillion. But because African countries, we don't want to trade one another as Africa. We are unable to reduce the inequality that is in the countries. I think if in Africa we can not focus on the outside market across Africa. If we can trade this with one another, it can uplift Africa.
I'm not an expert on trade policy, so I would hate to even venture into that space. I know I was having a discussion with an economist this morning over something very similar, and they were also saying, well, we don't necessarily have the skills in the country to be beneficiating and value add, which, well, we may not now, but I mean, certainly we could fast track the skills development to support local beneficiation and value add. I think from our perspective, what we can do is to put evidence on the table that then asks these kinds of questions of saying, well, when we sit in a country with a 30-odd% unemployment rate, what makes sense for us in terms of the use of our resources? And so hopefully the science that we can bring to this discussion will help to make informed choices going forward. We're good. Thank you so much.
Thank you for those, and thank you for the interaction. Okay, so final word goes to Nduvo Rapuru, the director of the NCPC. I'm not going to read the whole bio, but suffices to say that he's managed this center for many years and kept us on track. So you don't have to read it either.
No, it's just to make sure I know myself. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. And we really do appreciate the dedication to come and spend some time here with us. We have gone through a number of presentations since morning, and some of those, I'm sure, have inspired a level of confidence that there is things that we can point at that South Africa is doing, or the continent is doing, towards sustainability, but most important, this transition of our economy and making sure that we indeed achieve a just and fair transition. I want to just share with you some of the things and the findings. There is a catalog. Don't worry about my pronunciation of that. I think I'm saying it in Venda. Outside this book, Annual Highlight. And the best place to understand is at the center of this book. We're trying to give you both financial value, monetary value of the work that's been done. But we are also mindful of, some of us needs to know in carbon terms, how much tonnages does that translate to. We're also looking at both energy, water, and waste, and how the work that we are doing and it informs this data or statistics. Now, this work, perhaps let me go back to, okay. So the DTIC provides financial resources to us to undertake specific work. We have a very broad mandate, but with the limited resources that are there, we decide to focus on specific thematic areas, and also based on the bilaterals that DTIC or South African government has entered into at the agreements with a number of donor funding countries or agencies or banks, and we are able to access those resources, then we limit what we do to specific activities. Now, what we do specifically is support industry with their transition pathways. There's a number of pathways. Of course, what Linda was presenting is on overall from a DSI, Science and Innovation Department, how they are guiding the process. So if you go to DFFE, you will find other pathways. Earlier in the morning, we had the CEO of NBI. They've developed pathways for a number of subsectors of the economy, which the industry is driving or implementing. So our role is to support these pathways implementation in industry, and both at a sector level and at a company level. Now, sector level, it's policy, it's strategy, it's national development plan, but company level, it's specific issues dealing with production process of a product, so efficiency of how much does it take to produce 1 liter of Coke, in terms of the resources, raw materials involved, and also in terms of materials like electricity or any other form of energy. We also develop local skills and capacity. Now, using the Industrial Energy Efficiency Project, when we got engaged with the other 52 NCPCs, we were tasked to develop SAQA compliant, and I'm using compliant to make sure I don't create unnecessary expectations, and compliant because from an NQF point of view, they range from level 4 to level 8. So that's the level of qualification you could receive if you complete these trainings. And this training was developed in South Africa through the work we are doing. They are now available across the world, both from universities, some of the universities that are now even generating good income like Yale University or Vienna Business School. So we also developing skills in the different areas. For example, with resource efficiency and cleaner production, you start from an end user or an awareness type training to a level 8 post-grad qualification. You could also then, if you are an engineer or a scientist, you get credits or CPDP points for these trainings as well. We also have a very strong component of increasing awareness and information required for the transition process. One of the tasks that DTIC gave us was, we want that by the time you are done, there will be no need for a South African or an African company to import the skill or import the technology, because you would have facilitated the transfer of that skill. When we started in 2006, 2007, 99% of all the experts were coming from Europe or North America. At the moment, of the about 7,000 experts that we have developed through this process, majority of those now in the continent comes from this training, and they are South Africans and Africans. So that's part of what we are proud to have achieved. So the services are split into two. There are services that are fully paid for through DTIC, National Treasury Industrial Incentive Program, and services that we ask you to co-fund your participation. And for example, with training, we realized that we could have a classroom full of people. Unless they pay, the majority of them don't complete. But once they pay, they complete the training. So we have decided, okay, we charge you a fee. I guarantee you, if you go to any of our universities or private sector organization that does training, who are using this training, you will not pay for the expert level. Expert level, it's about 12 to 18 months, level 8 on NQF. You will not pay less than 25,000 rand. We will offer that to you for about 10 to 15,000 rand, because we just want you to commit to the training. We support in helping specifically small, micro, and sometimes medium size. We will support you in the implementation. We have a program where we help you look for financing, green finance, to support the implementation. But the medium to large enterprises, you can write off most of these projects through your tax processes, so we don't do much unless you are part of our training program. Your company is providing us their plant for us to bring the students to be trained inside, then we do everything for you for free. And then we assist in redirecting this raw material. So yesterday, with all the provinces, we were reviewing the impact of the industrial symbiosis program. It's part of what Prof was presenting now, Linda was presenting now. It's just at the bottom or the beginning of what circular economy is about. So once you go there, you open a new world of circularity in the country. The nice thing about this, if you look at some of the work, it's the amount of small micro enterprises that are coming out of the work that we are doing, because part of the outputs that we deliver and we show to the DTIC is the ability to find and incubate new enterprises in the circularity space. We assist in developing bankable business plan for that purposes, and we help you identify suitable funders for your project. This is only when you are participating in the program and there are benefits of helping you implement. So we will not do it for you if you just want us to help you find money. You might as well go to your bank or go to IDC. And then we do baseline measurement verification of the impact of the work that is going on, which is coming back to this document. In fact, what this document is saying is this slide. I'm going to skip the next 4 slides, are not necessary. You see the challenge of having someone who also takes time talking, spend more time talking. I've gone through all the slides now. I'm thinking, do I say thank you and sit down? So this information we are sharing with you, it's accumulation of work done from 2015 to 2024. It's in 2 forms. It's potential saving. So that's how much the company or the sector would save if they implement the recommendations we have given them. That's potential. Then we have actual savings. This is when a company or a sector of the economy took the recommendation, implemented them, and they realized the savings out of, and sometimes or most often, the actual is even better than the potential, because potential is mainly conservative, and you are trying to show value of what could be achieved if you had implemented some of those savings. I need to say this because we made a lot of noise to government and to ESCOM to say, just energy management systems. You're not implementing any technology. You're not changing any process flow. You're just managing the energy use process in the plant. We were able to recover about 6.5 megawatt hour of electricity. If you are familiar with, there's a township behind Midrand and Centurion called Olivenbosch. It's about 80,000 houses. It means you can keep those houses on for 12 months, non-stop. That's how much it is. And we're saying if you could do that, it means the gap that was left out of us switching off the 3 stations that we brought back online now to cut our carbon footprint, we could have easily managed that by just encouraging energy management. Energy management also imply managing your power quality issues. When all of a sudden a number of companies installed the solar PVs, they started experiencing that their equipment's calibration was no longer reliable or dependable because they were calibrated on fossil fuel ESCOM supply. Now they have other source coming in, and there were challenges with power quality, and you needed a new way of doing that. So energy management allows you to first do proper review and understanding of what needs to be done before you implement anything. Now, there are tools on our website. Everything you find on the website, if it's there, it's for public consumption, on public use. You are allowed to say, well, I see it, I'm a B&B. B&Bs are easy because you can almost say it's a geyser and a waste bin for me who's not an engineer. So you could just say, I am a B&B, 3-bedroom B&B. I want to save on raw material or resources or whatever. You go into the website, you'll find a tool that shows you how to do it. You download, you implement, and you receive the savings. Or you can be like me. If it's not an SMS or a WhatsApp, it comes on all those other things that dances. I run and I call my daughter and I said, what is this thing doing? And she goes, but you're not that old. So we are willing to listen to you with those kind of issues, and we will find you someone in the office or in the science community or engineering community to come and guide you, implement, or understand how that is relevant to your company. We also are willing that when you go on site, you just want to do the training. So you are a consultant or you are an engineering manager in a company. There are trainings there you identify, you let us know. 2 options I recommend. When you let us know if you want to do something and you don't have the money to attend, you say, I'm offering my company, my plant as a host company, and we will then provide everything for free because you are already giving us access to your systems. But if you have that 5,000 rand, we need it, you can come and pay. We give you access to the training. Maybe because you're a company, we make it about 10,000, it's okay. So the tools are available and they are for you to access. Some of, even, I'm I'm actually trying to think. The policy advisory notes that we write and all those are available for you to access and use and present your proposals and arguments to industry. At the moment, let me share with you 2 or 3 things that, so yesterday we were reviewing the industrial symbiosis program and the water management programs that we are doing. At the moment, we are or have just signed new agreements with funders and donors to go into 2nd or 3rd phase or detail on some of the project. I'm very excited with the project called Sustainable Energy Systems in Urban Industrial Development Project, because it speaks to even the question. So we don't have experience and knowledge. We're only now going to understand some of those things you were talking about, in terms of how does this work informs trade issues, informs social justice issues, informs economic transformation issues. The strength of adopting a resilient economy in South Africa and the global eco-industrial park. If you are here tomorrow, everything tomorrow would be predominantly about the GEIPP, or Global Eco-Industrial Park Project or program. Maybe to just give you some teasers, we have about 5,000 or so industrial parks in the country. Majority of those are located in what we used to call Bantustan or townships, township economies in the New South Africa. And government is now committed, DTIC wants to revitalize those parks, and we have proposed that one of the best way, as part of the just transition, economic transition, is to use the methodology called eco-industrial parks. So we renovate, revive, revitalize these parks, but we turn them into eco-industrial parks. And there are pilots going on, about 12 pilots in the country, from Eastern Cape or Western Cape to Limpopo. I'm from there, but I'm told I don't pronounce the name properly. Limpopo. So I had to think twice before I say it. It's as if me trying to speak Xhosa. I have to, yeah. I'm not good with languages. So that's what GEIP is all about, and it will be exciting for you to join us tomorrow to know more and see how you could participate. And then the circular economy activities. On our side, what we are now doing to try and contribute to what Prof. Godfrey is doing, we have a project doing circular economy in the textile industry. You will be fascinated to note that there are 4 or 5 key illicit products that are filling up SARS storerooms, storage facilities. From Musina to Durban to Cape Town to Kempton Park area. And the biggest storage facilities they have, except for cigarette and all the other stuff, is for textile products. We are importing a lot of illicit of those. So we're running a project with them where we're doing with SARS and our international donors, looking at textile and garment circularity issues and issues of chemical leasing and in the textile industry, and also looking at reviving the garment industry in the Republic of South Africa. You can join us online and interact with us, both on, it's no longer called Twitter, this I know, X, yeah. X, and there's LinkedIn, and we are on Facebook as well, and thank you so much, and hopefully that you're going to travel safely this afternoon, and see you tomorrow. I'm not closing. Julie has to come and do that for us. Thank you.
I really thought that he had the final word, didn't you? I thought so. So really, there's nothing left for me to say other than on your way out, please do scan those QR codes, give us some feedback, fill in the carbon footprint survey. I filled it in myself just now, and yes, there is a question there to see if you are interested in a complimentary online course about carbon footprinting. And we will see you tomorrow. The program starts at 8:30. Here in Diamond, we will be running the Eco-Industrial Parks program. We have delegates from approximately 10 countries around the world who have joined us, about 50, 60 of them. In addition to that, we've got representatives industrial parks from around the country who are coming to that. Whilst that's continuing, in the Ruby Room tomorrow, in the morning, we have a metals sector workshop, sustainability in the metals value chain, focusing from the foundry all the way through, predominantly starting in the foundries in the early morning. And in the afternoon is here's one that is of a lot of interest to a lot of people. It's the Green Finance Workshop. And it's really taking you through the practical steps that the NCPC has. We've got a database of potential funders. How do you develop those? What is your opportunities? How do you access that? And that's a really important one. If you can't make it tomorrow to the room, all the Teams links, the Microsoft Teams links are on our website. Go to the conference website, click on Join Us Online, and all the links to those sessions will be there tomorrow. The final workshop that was happening tomorrow is the Clothing and Textiles Workshop, and that will take place in the Emerald Room, and both of those are on the other side of the foyer. Drive safely, have a pleasant evening, and thank you once again for joining us.